Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wheeling the Rig. I'm Mandy Collins, your host, and with me today, Chief Bush. Again, we're going to go over tankers. I don't know if we spoke about it last time, Chief, when we talked about the engines. Do you know if we? I can't
No,
remember. I can't remember if we said it or not. But
not much.
today, today is all about big water. So, Tanker 730 is the newest addition. Chief Bush is actually going to give us a little bit of detail, and then after his uh, his info on it, I guess we're going to go to a couple of videos that we have. It's all tanker stuff, big water today. So, Chief.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, as Mandy mentioned, Tanker 730 is our newest addition to the fleet. It went in service last Thursday. Uh, we've actually had it for a little bit of time, but we had to go back and forth with the vendor a little bit because of some pesky engine code issues, and that finally got worked out. And cross our fingers, it's doing well. And as a result of that, the old tanker 730 has been folded into the reserve fleet, so we now have two reserve tankers, and Captain Poist is working on equipping that so it's ready to go. And hopefully we can completely avoid having to downstaff tankers in the county and have our fleet of 9 ready for service. So there were some things that we've done over the last few years with tankers that I don't think we've talked about a lot uh, with the department as a whole. Certainly the folks that work at those stations were aware, but so as we were thinking about ideas for stuff to talk about in this episode, it's like, well, let's talk about some of the things that we do in terms of nurse tanker operations, attack tanker operations, and setting up the folded tanks on the seldom chance that we have to do that. So I think the first video we have is kind of some of the little details in the new Tanker 730 that hopefully will make it easier to use. So let's just go ahead and watch that.
Yeah. All right. We're here with Chief Bush, and something I know nothing about, but he's going to talk to us about this. This is a new tanker, Tanker 730, correct?
Yes.
So, show me all about this thing.
So in the last 2 years, we've this will be the second tanker that we're putting in service. So Tanker 35 was the first one, and that went in service actually just before the new 35 opened. So hopefully they're enjoying it. I just wanted to talk about some of the little things that we did, and mainly the goal was just to make life easier for the operator and the folks that are trying to fill it. Um, so this one, we talked earlier about pressure governors. This is a pressure governor, kind of the newest generation that is just kind of like a little bit dumber than the smart flow system that we just talked about with the new pumpers. But it's the same thing. You go back and forth between pressure and RPM. Here, it shows you intake and discharge pressures. Uh, with this particular unit, because the pump really isn't the main feature of the rig, and being mainly it's dumping water, although it may have to pump off its water. We went and elected to do away with the analog intake and discharge gauges. So all that information is displayed here. um, MIV valves. So we elected just to have one MIV valve. We put it on the passenger side. So on this side, the water flow is controlled by this external valve. You'll note that it terminates in 6-inch threads. The thinking behind that was that on the rare opportunity that you would have to draft with this, you wouldn't have to take this valve off. So there will be an adapter here that'll be 6-inch NST to 4-inch Storts for supply line operations and that sort of thing. But if you had to draft, all you would have to do is take that adapter off, and you can draft through the valve here. And it's a full flow valve. There's no flow restriction or anything like that.
All right.
Uh, You can prime either off the main pump or just like with the E1s that you just saw, there's an individual primer control for the right-hand side MIV. We started doing this, actually Chief Friedman started doing this during his tenure, but you'll note that the tanker carries 2 tanks. So with tanker design, you always want to have enough portable tank capacity to have about 500 gallons more than the actual tanker carries. So this is a 3,500 gallon tanker. There's 2 2,100 gallon single lane portable tanks.
Okay.
And the folks that have used them, they're much lighter than the traditional big square tanks. Let's walk around in the back. Good question. Let's go ahead.
Well, not that I'm familiar with anything with tankers, but this looks a little unusual compared to what I thought I was used to, just something else. So, you want to tell us about your design here, Chief?
Yeah, so one of the things that when you're filling tankers, and those of you that have done it, when you're filling with large diameter hose, you know that when that hose is full and you're trying to unhook it, there's a lot of weight there, right?
It's heavy.
And it's heavy. So instead of having the connections up here high where you're dealing with it up here, we brought them as low as possible. And actually, when we spec these, we told the factory, get them as low as you can. I actually wanted them closer to the tailboard, but this is what they were able to do. So the other thing that makes it a little easier is there's a big drain here. Mm-hmm. So when the tank is full, now these have the fireman's friend clapper valve type valves.
Okay.
So as soon as the water flow is shut off from that fill valve, that flapper valve closes. You can open up the drain, get rid of the water.
So it's only bleeding just
yeah.
Right
so it's bleeding this part, and then all that's left to manipulate is right here, and it's at waist level or close to waist level for most of us, and you can get that out. All right, we'll migrate around.
All right.
One of the other things to make life easier, we've got the square dumps. So if you recall, we used to have the smaller circular dumps on the sides. Those were significantly slower than the big square ones that are on the rear. So these are all the same. They're all big square 10-inch dumps. That's going to get rid of about 1,800 gallons in the first minute or so, and then you're going to get rid of the rest of it in about the next 30 to 45 seconds. So the critical dump time with these is somewhere between 90 to 100 seconds.
Okay.
And after that, you've gotten rid of 90% of your load. You should be moving on.
Okay.
Again, just things to make life a little bit easier for the operator. So we know in the attack tanker mode, you're going to be pumping off your water. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 large diameter discharges so that you can do that fairly quickly.
Is there a difference in the GPMs for these?
They both can do the capacity of the pump.
Okay.
The limiting factor when you're pumping off is the tank to pump valves.
Okay.
These were spec'd with twin 4-inch valves.
Okay.
So they should also be able to do fairly close to 1,500 gallons per minute. But you'll see you got the hose trays here with the hose. Pretty easy just to roll this out, connect it to the discharge, connect it to the clappered Siamese, and you're good to go.
All right, we're back from that video. So question I had during the break, which by the way, questions, feel free, send them in. Chief Bush has his computer up so we can kind of catch them as they do come in. But I was asking, so the tanker committee is who?
So the tanker committee is same as the engine committee.
Okay.
So that's Master Firefighter Wallace, Doug Wallace from Station 8, Chief John Cannell from Bethesda, Battalion Chief First from the 1st Battalion, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. And Mr. Neubauer, of course,
Oh,
from
okay,
CMF,
right. Engine, our engine
our
guy.
esteemed mechanic. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. Our happy guy.
happy guy.
Yeah.
Yep. He does a great job for us. And
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that tanker committee, and that's pretty much this tanker. Other than this, we don't have anything else in the books, right? I mean, we don't really
we don't have any.
replace them like we do engine companies, right? I mean, it's
Oh, I
is there
see
like
what
a
you're
like
asking.
a like a tenure on
Yeah, so
tankers?
we figure a tanker probably lasts about 25 years,
Okay.
and there's far fewer of them than there are engines. And we have a lot of our LFRD partners who purchase their own. So, of course, we work with them with the specification process to, make sure we're meeting the needs. And yeah, so it's I wouldn't say it's rare that we're going to buy another one, but it's certainly not going to happen probably in my time that's left.
Right.
Yep.
And then, so the engines, when we have them built, they're roughly like how long does it take to complete a engine build?
Okay. So we've gotten to the point now where we're going to be soliciting proposals to build new engines just about every year.
Okay.
So if you recall, back in 2018 is when we placed the order with Pierce. We bought like 24 of them, and that meant that we had 24 warranty issues all occurring
Right.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So the goal is that you don't want everything expiring at once or having problems at once. So to stay sustainable with our fleet, we need to purchase 2 or 3 engines a year.
Right.
We just last spring of 24 is the last time that we solicited proposals. We ordered 3 pumpers at that point. We're getting ready to gear up to do that again, and we'll be ordering two more pumpers this spring.
So that will all kind of offset a little bit, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to the other ones. And the reason I asked that, obviously, I know they take a while to build, but I didn't know as far as for the tankers, not that we need one anytime soon since this one just came in. But is it like as long of a build for tankers at all, roughly the same as far as the like builds for these new pieces of apparatus?
I hate to predict the future because right now the build times seem to be elongating again.
Okay.
So the E1 pumpers took about 2.5 years to build. The 3 that we ordered last spring from Pierce, I think is going to be about the same, if not a little bit longer. This particular tanker that we just put in service was less time, although you wouldn't have known it because there was a lot of warranty issues
Right.
with it.
Some bugs.
But I would say on the whole, probably tankers on commercial chassis take less time than a custom cab pumper does.
Yeah. Not as many bells and whistles, I guess to say.
Yeah, I
for-
mean, the
for something like
chassis is
that.
already built by somebody who builds thousands of them. You think about how many chassis Freightliner builds in a year, like the fire service market, very
Right.
small percentage of that. So easy to obtain those chassis. That's why we put our ambulances on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty neat stuff, especially for myself who works down county. I don't see a lot of tanker operations, right? But as we were speaking before, a lot of folks that are actually going to be involved in these tanker operations aren't necessarily the folks with the tankers. You're looking at the next units coming in. So the videos that Chief Bush shot with the courtesy of Station 13, right?
13 on the A shift. Yep.
Yeah, 13A. These are just some informative videos on the first one's on the nurse tanker operation. So we put these in just because this is just a great refresher. I enjoyed watching them, so I'll be paying attention again. But it is something for everybody in the department, not just the folks that are up there with these units. So nurse tanker operations?
Yeah, so we just wanted to put a few videos together there over the last few years. We don't have a whole lot of rural fires, and we've experienced some commonalities with some of the problems that we've had. So we thought it would be worth talking about, hey, here's how you should be doing it, here's some best practices, etc. So the first video is talking about the first arriving tanker that assumes that nurse tanker position and goes up the driveway with the first arriving engine.
All right, we'll take a look. We're here with Chief Bush, and
All right, so we're out here on a beautiful May day with the crew from 13A shift. So I want to tell them thank you for letting us use their apparatus and equipment today. We had hoped to have the new tanker out here, tanker 730, but it's actually in the shop with some error code issues, so that's fine. Folks from 13 were more than happy to step up. So if you recall, Chief Davis and I put out some videos a few years ago when we moved to the attack tanker type of operation, where we had some toys, some toy fire trucks and some yarn and everything. We kind of mapped out how everything looked. I thought it would be good just to go over that stuff again, because it's been a few years and there's been a few little friction points that have cropped up. So the first due engine or the second due engine would have laid out, they would have laid out with the clappered Siamese. So I think we heard the last time from Master Firefighter Wallace, one of the reasons that we put the clappered Siamese back on the back of the tailboard for the new E1 engines is we were seeing that there were some issues with the rural box alarms, with folks remembering to get the clappered Siamese out of the compartment, attach it to the layout hose, and you know, do the right thing according to policy. So we've kind of eliminated that issue with an engineering fix for the new engines. So the clappered Siamese that's on the right hand side is the new TFT clappered Siamese. It's lighter and smaller, which is why we chose it. It would fit on the tailboard better. The other one that's hooked up on the left from Tanker 713 is the older style. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. It still works well. So don't send defects to Small Tools asking for the new one, right? You'll get the new one as time goes on, and we need to replace the old ones, but the old ones still work as long as they're, you know, they should be tested with the hose testing process, etc. So if you look at the hose layout, ideally we want to locate the clappered Siamese somewhere where the tankers can easily get in and get out. So tanker 713 has chosen the first position. So you notice we have one longer pony section, and then we have a shorter one. You can see that there's ample room for two tankers to get in at the same time. Tanker 713 is assuming the second due tanker position, but they're the first to pump the Siamese. The third due tanker would come in, and they would hook up similarly to how tanker 713 is hooked up in terms of attaching their large diameter discharge to the hose that's waiting for them. If you arrive here as the tanker driver and you don't find the short shots, you just find the clappered Siamese. You do carry short shots on your tanker. This is one of the reasons you carry them, so you can go ahead and set this up. Certainly you would set up your section first, get that rolling, and then set up a second section. Just remember to space this out so we can get two tankers at once. If you notice the way that tanker 713 is positioned, there's room on the driver's side for other units to pass if they need to. And certainly when this third tanker comes in and assumes a position here, they should do the same thing where they leave room for any other vehicles that need to get by, including maybe the fourth due tanker if it gets there and wants to start pumping the Siamese before the third due leaves. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have Master Firefighter Waltz pump the Siamese here to kind of review the practical application guide for the tanker driver. It says that when you pump the Siamese, you're going to pump it at about 100 pounds. So we'll go ahead and let this the line fill. So he revved up to about 100 psi on his discharge. So that's going to get you where you want to be most of the time. That accounts for the friction loss in the line, the friction loss in the appliance, and gives the attack engine or the nurse tanker that's up the driveway the necessary pressure at their intake to be able to do business. And then he, of course, went ahead and went and straightened out the kinks. So he's going to maintain 100 pounds. The water is going to go up to the incident scene where the attack apparatus is going to use it. The next tanker arriving is going to come in. He's going to assume the position. At that point, he should go ahead and charge that hose line, but he's only going to do that at idle. So he would charge it at idle, let the water fill the line, and then he should be looking up and looking at the tank gauges on the back of the other tanker. When that tanker is getting close to running out, that's the point at which the tanker driver that's sitting here should be ready to take over. So he would go ahead and as soon as the tanker to my left is finished pumping and shuts down, this guy's ready to take over, and there's no lack of continuity with the water supply.
All right, so a little mishap with the videos there, right? That was the attack tanker. We meant to show you the nurse tanker, but it got a little backed up. So that was the attack tanker operations, right? Now, we're kind of backtracking now. But is there anything you wanted to add onto that whole attack tanker?
No, we were trying to show them sequentially, as the kind of the SOP rolls out. With the first arriving tanker does the nurse tanker operations. The second and third arriving tankers are pumping the Siamese. So that's what we were trying to show there. And shout out to firefighter Bud Waltz. Gave him a little field promotion there. Mm-hmm. Tried to edit that out, but obviously we weren't successful in catching that. So
I'm sure he'll take it.
I'm sure he'll take it. Right. So yeah, if we could just go back to the nurse tanker operation, and again, that's what the first arriving or first due tanker is going to be doing in terms of splitting the supply line and kind of being that reserve for that first arriving engine.
Okay.
If you recall, Chief Davis and I put out some videos a few years ago when we moved to the attack tanker type of operation, where we had
I think they're.
A few technical difficulties. That's all right.
We're just seeing if you're awake, if anybody
Right.
was even paying attention. So.
We've got 24 viewers, so tell your friends.
All right, so
Nope. I think they're working on it.
I have to apologize that that day that we were filming, I guess I had a bad case of kennel cough. But
I couldn't really tell.
Right.
So that was fine. And you guys at least had a nice day for it.
we did. It was
So.
beautiful. Yeah.
So.
Perfect May day and perfect temperature.
I'll be honest, like for pre-filming,
Yeah. Couldn't have asked for any better.
yeah, but you know what? You were like, oh well, you don't. It's fine. You don't have to go. Which I was sick anyway. But if I could have went, that actually would have been pretty good hands-on stuff. So
Right.
just, again, touching base. Like even after we started doing this stuff, and going over these videos. I mean, I work down county, but I would definitely be interested in doing some of this, just because you just never know, right? You never know when you're going to need it. So.
Yeah, I think you referred to that earlier. So the first in the rural environment, the folks that are going to probably have to do the more work that they're the least familiar with
Right,
is that fill site engine, so the 6 do.
right,
So, and then if you end up transitioning to a dump tank operation, that's going to be a 3rd do. So, depending on where you are in the county, that could be somebody that is used to operating with hydrants all the time, or
yeah,
it could even be an out of county unit. So you just never know. When I was a company officer, I always used to tell the folks, we are one transfer away from having to do this stuff.
sure, yeah. I mean, even then, well, you're talking about, I guess, back when, was that when you were 34 or back at 12?
Back at 12.
Because I was going to say, I mean, even there, right, I'm sure there's probably some places up in Howard County you could get transferred to.
Yeah. Or even in county.
Well, yeah, 24s. But
Right.
see, I figured you'd probably be more involved with it. You'd be like second due or
yeah.
something there.
But-
But yeah, I mean, 24 has some areas that are not hydrated, and well, I don't even know what's the first due tanker over there.
I couldn't tell you.
Uh,
When we used to think
don't
about
know.
it, we'd be like, we could get a lot more pumpers here pretty quickly to do a relay than we could to do
yeah, I guess so.
a tanker operation. But I think probably one of the Howard County tankers coming down Route 29.
Was it 115 or whatever? Did they have a tanker?
Station 11, I think, has
Okay,
one.
yeah. So
Yep.
I don't know if they have the video up, or me and the chief can just sit here and keep shooting the breeze.
Right.
But yeah, I will say this. So since we just watched the attack tanker, and I'm not a tanker driver, I had no idea about that whole PSI, and then obviously, just pump the, as far as letting, when the second one comes in, second attack tanker come in and just put it idle. And I'm trying to think if I'm saying this right, because there's no relief valves, right,
Correct.
for those. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of pretty important. I mean, as far as when you're trying to supply that to be, what would happen? What is the back? Since I'm not a tanker driver, would there be any repercussions in them accidentally like throttling up and then having that much more?
So the guy or girl that's pumping the highest is going to win that battle,
Right.
right? So there's 2 clappers, one for each side.
Yes.
And so when that first tanker comes in, they start pumping their water off, that clapper opens, it's going to force the other one shut. So the reason we tell the next arriving tanker just to fill the line at idle is to make that transition seamless.
Okay.
So he or she should be watching the tank level gauges on that the tanker that's pumping the water off, and when they start getting close to empty, that's the sign of like, okay, you're probably going to have to take over. But even at idle, that pump is probably producing 40, 50 psi.
Right.
So as soon as there's an absence of pressure on the other leg of that clappered Siamese, it should swing open. Now we have seen in practical application, if the clappered Siamese like gets tilted on its side, or maybe it hasn't been maintained and there's some leakage with the gaskets and whatnot, that sometimes it takes a little bit more pressure to kind of make that transition work. And that's why we tell you to raise it up to 100 pounds.
Okay.
So that's all part of the practical application guide that the tanker driver has to go through to get checked out.
Yeah, I've never even looked at them, so I don't know what's in them. But
Yep.
I'll be honest, I would never want to drive a tanker because I just know how heavy they are, and
Yeah.
just as far as, what do they say? What's the most dangerous driving it when it's half? Is it when it's half full, or?
I mean, I think they're dangerous
as
to
I-
drive all the time,
Well,
right?
yeah,
all
all that water
weight.
sloshing around. But
right.
I'm just wondering, like, obviously it's baffled in there, but
Right.
if it was, I don't know. Here's a question for one of you tanker operators out there. Maybe you can answer it for me. Where the most dangerous part is as far as for driving it like that. I would think,
Yeah.
maybe if it was like not all the way full, or maybe in the middle. I don't know how much water movement that would actually be.
Sure. My opinion is it's more dangerous driving it full,
Yeah.
just in my personal experience. And I don't obviously drive one here for a living, but certainly up home I will drive one on occasion. But yeah, other folks may have different opinions. But the goal with tanker driving, even with the new chassis, they're pretty maneuverable, right? And they drive very easily. And sometimes you're tempted to forget that you got 3,500 gallons of water behind you.
Right, and you're going, and obviously this is in more rural areas, so now we're talking about back windy roads.
Yep.
No shoulders.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely some. Again, no interest whatsoever.
Right.
Okay, I think they have the video up. So
Very good.
back to attempt number 34. To
Who's
the
counting?
Nurse tanker.
Nurse tanker.
Nurse tanker video.
We're back here with the folks from the 13A shift who have graciously helped us out today. So wanted to talk a little bit about the actions of the first arriving tanker. Under our policy, that tanker goes up the driveway and co-locates with the attack engines. The supply line has already been laid out. You can see the clappered Siamese here. You can see how tanker 713 has inserted himself into the supply line. So obviously the distances here are a little bit abbreviated. We would expect to see more supply line between the clappered Siamese and the actual incident scene. But just for the sake of where we are today, this is how we set it up. So I really want to concentrate on a couple things here. So if we look at where the hoses are hooked up, really critical that the line coming from the clappered Siamese is going to the intake of the pump. It goes to the intake of the pump. You can see right here where the red line coming from the clappered Siamese is hooked up to the intake. And then the large diameter discharge is feeding the yellow hose, which is going to the attack engine, and that is going to the attack engine's intake. One of the friction points that we're seeing in rural operations is folks who are driving that first arriving tanker, or maybe even somebody that's helping them out, want to go ahead and split the supply line and hook the hose that's coming from the clappered Siamese directly to the fill port on the back of the tanker. We really should just put a sign on the back of these that would say for filling only. If you're utilizing your fire pump in the hose lay, which is what you should be doing as the nurse tanker, the idea is you're nursing the water, so you're pumping the water, not the place to hook up, right? So if you think about how a centrifugal pump works, it can take advantage of incoming flow and pressure. If we connect up to the tank fill itself, we lose that advantage altogether. We also lose the advantage of the pump operator to control the amount of water that's going into his tank and going out of his tank, and then we become dependent on the size of the tank to pump line in terms of how much water we can actually flow. So our tankers, we take good care to spec out with twin 4-inch tank to pump lines, so usually flow is not really an issue, but there is no incoming flow and pressure being taken advantage of. If somebody else's tanker comes in and for whatever reason is the first arriving and becomes the nurse tanker, not all counties around us spec it out the same way. So there again, you may be limited to that NFPA minimum of 500 gallons per minute. So as the tanker driver or the tanker operator, you're going to want to be really diligent about monitoring the supply line that's coming into you. You have to be ready to take over pumping operations from your booster tank and what you carry on there. So one of the things that would be critical to do is crack open your tank fill and make sure that you're keeping a full tank at all times. We preach that constantly in pumps class and the driver training, but just another good example of why that's important, right? So if something happens down at the Clapboard Siamese or the dump site and they run out of water, this nurse tanker is going to be the reserve for the attack engine, right? Something that might help you out, and you'll have to kind of play with this in training. If you leave your tank to pump valve open, there's a clapper in there that keeps it shut as long as you have a pressurized supply coming into you and your intake is open. If you lose that pressurized supply, that clapper valve will open, the tank water will come down to the pump, and you'll never lose the continuity of pumping to the first due engine. Now you do have to be cautious, right, with that, right? So if the supply line between you and the Clapboard Siamese is broken and you don't close that intake valve, some of your tank water could very well spill down that line, and so that's going to be a problem. Other thing just to keep in mind is we've had situations where the tanker driver has over-pressurized the line going to the attack engine. Particularly at these short distances, you really don't have to be much more than idle. So remember, you want to be supplying the attack engine with a minimum of 20 pounds at his intake. 4-inch line at this short a distance, it's not going to require a lot to overcome friction loss. So don't get overexcited. Don't pump that line too hard. Just kind of keep this gentle. If you're at a distance from the attack engine, then you got to think about what is the friction loss and set your pressures accordingly so that you're delivering 20 pounds to him.
So Chief Bush and I, just FYI, the AV crew, the 1075 media, these guys do a great job. So they just came in and apologized so much, but we're going to have a little bit of a backup plan next time. We're just going to have some, like, you know, stupid jokes or something for you guys. Something to keep everybody entertained, right?
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll entertain ourselves if nothing else, right?
Yeah, we can you guys just have to watch us.
Right.
Okay, so we're back on track. The next video that we're going to show you, it is again with Tanker 713. However, the new Tanker 730 is pretty much the same, right?
They're all pretty much the same. Yep.
So this is just a video on how to operate the manual, the tank racks, right?
Yeah, so all of our tank racks have electric motors, like anything involving a motor.
Right.
Sometimes stuff breaks.
What?
And yeah, hard to believe, right? And it's not an out of service condition.
Right.
And these guys were like, hey, our motor's broken. We have to use it manual style. And you'd think in all the years that I've been involved with tanker operations, I would have done that. I've never done that. So I'm like, well, let's film it because I'm sure there's a lot of other folks that haven't done it, and we can show them how to do it. So.
All right.
Okay, so when our porta-tank switch electrically fails, like this side here is today, there's a manual procedure which we'll review real quick. You'll need a pry bar, which is conveniently right here, and a couple of friends, which is also conveniently right here. So these pins come out on both sides. They will not come out easy, even if they are lubricated. There's one. We'll do the other side, and then you need your 3 friends, or 4. Almost there. The 2-hander. All right. All right, down on 3. Always put the tall guy in the middle if you have one. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Down slow. Yep, nice and easy. All right, at that point we can continue just like we normally would electrically when it's down in this position. We just take our top, lean it forward, and then come straight up. And that's it. We'll put these back up. These can be tricky. Starting back in, do not hammer them. This will break. Sometimes you just kind of have to fiddle with it. No hammer. Got that one? There it is. Now we're back in business and ready to operate. Definitely more labor intensive with not having that electrical motor to help us out. So practice, if you know it has a ticket already written for it, make sure we practice that. It's labor intensive.
I would probably totally break that pin. I would probably break that pin. Let's hope that I don't have to do that one. If I gotta help get you guys get that down, I'll have the electric motor.
Yeah, well, like I said, pretty unusual for them to go out of service, but this one did, and Bud and his big bare hands was able to get the pins out and put them back in, and the guys did a great job, and it was like, wow, this is worth sharing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely that's cool. I again had no idea those things
Right.
could actually come out like that. So.
Yep.
All right.
So we do have a question came in from the audience, which is growing, which is good, but asked about the department's ISO rating and if there's any plans to address improving the department's ISO rating. So Battalion Chief Grinder is the department's ISO liaison, so he'd be better equipped to speak to this than I am. But just kind of a general explanation of what ISO is. It's the Insurance Services Organization, and they're kind of an insurance industry body that rates fire protection efforts. So they come in and they look at hydrant systems, et cetera, et cetera. Generally, what they do is they'll assign a rating from 1 to 10, 1 being you meet top marks in every single category, 10 being you have a sign that says fire department on the door and probably not much
Not
else.
that great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So typically they rate departments in hydrogen versus not having hydrants. So our rating is a 2/4. And we really don't fall short anywhere in terms of water supply. We've gotten really good marks in that category. Any improvements that would have to be made in the Class 4 rating for the rural environment probably have more to do with building new stations,
More coverage.
documenting training hours is something where, well, I know we have opportunities to improve there. So I think it would be, we would have some work to do to become a Class 1 in the hydrant areas. Improving from a Class 4 in the rural areas, that's actually pretty darn good, and might be one of those areas where the juice really isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
But I would certainly defer to Mike and what he has in the works for that.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
That was kind of a
But great question.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's good. And I didn't know what our ratings were, so
Yeah.
so 4 is okay, huh?
4 is pretty darn good.
Pretty good.
If you don't have hydrants on every corner, 4 is pretty good.
All right.
Yep.
Cool. I think we have 2 more videos.
Yeah, so,
Right, so-
this next one, we're going to talk about setting up dump tanks. If you, we'll talk about it in the video, but our normal mode of operation is to pump the Siamese, the attack tanker operation, and that can support up to 500 gallons-ish, maybe more, depending on whose tankers are coming to the party.
Right.
But if we have to go to large flows, like supporting a ladder pipe or something like that, we're probably going to need to put the dump tanks on the ground.
Okay.
So we're back in Damascus on a beautiful May day. Again, my thanks to the crew from 13A for helping us out today. We obtained the single lane tanks for the tankers probably back out in the 2018, 2019 timeframe. I don't think that we've done a whole lot of discussion about them from a countywide perspective, other than I think there was a monthly basic training that came out in the 1920 time frame. So I thought it'd be worth going over again. So all the new tankers that we're buying are coming with twin single lane tanks. They hold, depending on the size of the apparatus, 21 to 2,500. I believe the ones behind me are 2,100s. So the notion with portable tank sizing for tankers is whatever your tank capacity is, you want to carry at least 500 gallons more. So if we were carrying just a single tank for our 3,500 gallon tankers, we would want a 4,000 gallon tank. And the reason for that is invariably the portable tanks get set up on a slope. So if they hold exactly the capacity of the booster tank, you're going to lose some water due to runoff. With extra capacity, that extra 500 gallons, even if you're set up on a slight slope, it doesn't really matter. There's ample room in the tanks to hold the capacity of the tankers. So behind me, we have twin 2100. We've started putting different color tanks on the different apparatus, and there's really no rhyme or reason to what colors were chosen. The goal there was if you were going to have to dump in them, it'd be much easier to tell the tanker driver, dump in the red, dump in the blue, instead of saying the first or the second, because then you got to tell them what the reference point is. So remember, as a department, the attack tanker is the preferred option. We use that up to about 500 gallons per minute, which should be, I don't know, probably 98% of our fires in the rural environment. When we have to go to large flows, so typically if we're supplying a ladder pipe for an extended duration or something like that, at that point is when we're going to pull out the dump tanks or set up some kind of a relay from the water source, whatever's preferred by the water supply officer. So going to the dump tanks, we already know that we're going to be flowing over 500 gallons per minute, so we should set up for large flows from the get-go and not have to fix things as we go along. So just keep that in mind as we move further in the discussion here. So we're simulating that they elected to use the rear intake to the pumper. So the rear intake is a fine choice. We don't have to make any other adjustments. The rear intakes for both the Crimsons and the Pierces, and also the new E1s, should be able to handle the capacity of the pump, which is 1,500 gallons per minute. They elected to use 2 hard sleeves instead of the 1, so you're looking at that, you're like, well, that took more work, why would I do that? So remember, when we set up the dump tank, we want to make sure that the strainer at the end of the suction tubes is in the lowest part of the tank. So as I'm looking at it, the lowest part of the tank is to my right, and that's exactly where they put the strainer. So if we look at the strainer itself, we notice that we have the newer TFT high flow low head strainer. This is not what is carried on our older engines. So if we look in the tank behind us, the red strainer is what came on this Spartan wagon. When the fellows from 13 get their new pumper, which should be pretty soon, they'll get one of these nice spiffy new TFT strainers. So when we set this up, we were mindful that we wanted to put the higher flow strainer on the suction tube that was being drafted from by the engine, right? So those red TFTs, that's the first generation low head strainer. They did pretty well, but we know that there's a flow limitation on those. Those red strainers are not going to support more than 1,000 gallons per minute. So if we're thinking about setting this up because we're going to a high flow operation, we're going to need to worry about pump capacity. So we want to put the strainer that is supplying the pump that has the highest flow, and that's going to be these new TFT high flow strainers. The other thing that they've done is you see the green attack line that's attached to the jet siphon. So that's the circulating line. Remember, anytime that you're drafting you want to have some way of moving the water. So as the dump site engine is pumping the water up to the attack, there's going to be times when the water is going to come to a halt. So we want to be able to keep moving water. So if we just leave that line cracked, it's not doing any harm. It's not really taking that much pump capacity. It is circulating the water. It's keeping the pump cool. It's maintaining that draft. And if there's a water hammer somewhere in the system, it also provides a pressure relief. All right, so we just want to make sure that we take care when we set the tanks up before we put water in them, because once you put water in them, you're not going to move them. So with the single lane tanks, you want to set them a little bit on the road side of the engine. So if you set them all the way out, which would be the natural inclination, then think about the tanker having to drive by. And think about the fact that our hose lines are running from the pump panel. So if we just don't have to do much, a few inches is plenty, but setting them towards the roadside allows the tanker driver not to hit the pumper as it's going by, which we at CMF appreciate. The other thing you would have to take care is both tanks have to be lined up in the same manner. You want them exactly the same. And if you don't do that, if one's inset or outset, it's going to be very difficult for the tanker driver to come in and dump and not hit anything. So we want to kind of think about that. It just takes a few extra seconds, but it's well worth it in terms of avoiding any damage and making sure that the operation goes smoothly. When we think about setting up the dump tanks, we already said that we're going to be thinking about a high flow operation. If we could have handled the fire with 500 gallons per minute, we would have done that with the attack tanker operation, pumping the Siamese. That's a lot easier. So once we get out the dump tanks, we want to be able to support higher flows. 2,100 gallons here, 2,100 gallons here. Part of what's going to have to happen from the get-go is you're going to have to be able to move the right amount of water from your second tank to your first tank. So always best practice to set up at least 2 transfer devices. Transfer devices will vary on their effectiveness. My rule of thumb is each one is probably around 500 gallons per minute in terms of a net movement of water. So if we set up the transfer devices, the easiest way to do it, run a piece of 3-inch or 2.5 off your pump panel, trim it out with a gated Y. You run a single section of attack hose around to your transfer devices. All right, so if we look at what we've got in play here, we're using the jet siphon off the red Kochek strainer as our transfer device number 1. The ring jet siphon that you would normally screw into the female end of the hard sleeve is missing or not available today, so we went old school. So you can make a transfer device simply using an attack line. So right here you see that we've stuffed a nozzle into it. It is tied open. So the way to do this is you put your webbing or your utility rope, whatever you're using, from the other end. You tie off this nozzle, you tie off the other end, and that way when the nozzle is in operation, it doesn't want to come out. You've already tied it up. It's not going to come out. So will this work as well as the regular jet siphon? No. Is something better than nothing? Yes. So this would be kind of your workaround if you don't have a second jet siphon available to you. And then finally, probably important to tie off these hard sleeves. You don't want them flopping around. Remember, we want the hard sleeves for the transfer devices up above the level of the water. That way we can see if they're moving the water effectively, and when we stop the transfer, it's not siphoning the water back. Because remember, if there's no air in a tube, water is going to seek the lowest level, and in this case it would be to go backwards into that secondary tank. Let's see, other things that the crew did. So we have these diffusers. You could choose to use these to attach your circulating line to. In this instance, they use the jet siphon attachment, which is my preference. It contributes to the success of the drafting operation. You don't have to worry about tying it off, etc. But this is an option for circulating lines. The other thing that would help you with, if you have an engine tanker or a pumper even that's contributing to the water shuttle, and they don't dump fast or they don't have a dump at all, you could park them out of the way and just have them attached to one of these diffusers and pump off their water into the tank. There's another example down there. That's the 4-inch diffuser. Could be used for the same thing. Just 2 examples. If you use these, just make sure that the safety devices are appropriately pinned. So you can see both of them have a safety pin here. Having it face out is probably best practice, so you're not rubbing up against the tank wall. And then they've got some sort of clamp attachment, which is also pinned, that secures it to the rail. Just be really careful with these. You don't want to charge them at high pressure. There's no restriction at the end of these, so and there will be somewhat of a nozzle reaction when they're first charged, so making sure that they're pinned and secured appropriately is really important. All right, last thing I want to talk about with the fold-a tank. So the new ones that we bought come with different ways to secure the drain sleeves. So everybody wants to worry about the drain sleeve first because we're all worried about cleanup and making it easy. So I like this. So keep the drain sleeve on the inside so that the weight of the water helps keep it shut. You just feed it through this bar clamp and then it's secured. It's not going anywhere. Really easy to operate. We tried bringing it on the outside and putting it in. That just didn't seem to work as well. It wanted to bulge, and you really had to be careful that you were clamping it exactly right. So doing it this way, bringing it inside out, is much easier to feed it through. When you're ready to go ahead and drain the tank, you bring the clamp down. Easy for me to say. Work the drain sleeve out. Just throw it in the pond. You're going to have to work the sleeve out, which is a little bit awkward and usually leads to wet feet. You see the older style tank has got the drain sleeve tied up on the inside with the old-fashioned rope, and then it's tied around the rail. Again, the same thing. The weight of the water is keeping the drain sleeve shut, and then when we're done, we just kind of have to reach through and pull it out and let the water go. Only other thing to mention, you see the playground balls. Very expensive fire department item, but what they do is they break up the whirlpool that wants to form. So definitely more critical to have that in the primary drafting tank because we don't want to suck air into the engine. They will make the transfer devices a little bit more effective as well, but not really so much a concern with the transfer devices as they are for the main drafting tank. I think that's it. That was a lot.
All right, so pretty informative video about the folding tanks, I thought. As I was speaking with the chief here while the video was playing, I guess I am that old because I remember that we used to set them up to the diamonds, right? It was not flush with one another or however you want to say it, but it was actually like you kind of had them in a diamond. So
Yeah,
that was
that was definitely old school, and I remember those days too. So before I don't remember when the standard changed, but the latest NFPA standard on mobile water supply apparatus, which is what they call it, they don't kind of get involved in the tanker versus tender naming controversy, but they call it mobile water supply apparatus. So that particular standard, which is NFPA 1900 now, says that to be considered that you have to be able to dump from the rear as well as the sides. So now that we have, in our county, we have all side dumping stuff. Still got the rear dump in case it's needed. You got to be able to do it on three sides of the rig.
Okay.
But the notion behind the arrangement with the diamonds was if you had a rear dumping tanker and that's the only way it could dump, it could pull past the tank and then kind of gently make a curve and back into it and dump, and then could leave pretty easily. But now that we have the rectangular tanks and we're able to put them in front or behind the rigs and not take up a whole lot of road space,
Right.
using those side dumps is better, certainly faster.
That actually brings me to a question to ask you. With the fact that that is how we set them up now, when we run, if we were to have a big rural water supplies operation, are our surrounding jurisdictions, they're all in NFPA compliance then, I guess, with this as well, so we don't really have to worry about any setup, or do we not? Are we unsure, or we're just keeping our fingers crossed?
I would say, to my knowledge, most of them meet the modern standard. There may be one or two engine tankers coming out of points north of here that may not be able to dump off the side, or may not dump as quickly, but I don't know that for fact.
Okay.
Right.
All right, cool. Well, that was,
Great question.
yeah, I mean, it's just something I was thinking about, so whatever. That's what we're here for. We have one more video, and this one is on, again, something I know nothing about, but the drafting elbows and the through the wall.
Through the wall flange that's on the single lane tank. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, I did see the flange, but okay, I have no idea how to use it, so I guess we'll take a look at this.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna have to talk a little loud because we're drafting here. We've switched the operation around. We wanted to show the use of the drafting elbow and the through the wall flange that we have on the new SLTs. So if you're not familiar with both of these devices, we look down there, the drafting elbow is attached to the intake. This enables us to keep the hard sleeves very close to the engine and cut down on that profile. Instead of having to come out and make a bend with the hard sleeves, this does it for us. This is the full flow of the engine. It'll do 1,500 gallons per minute. One tip, you can see there's not a whole lot of space here between the engine and the hard sleeve. It's probably better to put the drafting elbow on the hard tubes first and then attach it to the intake rather than trying to go the other way around, because trying to bend the hard sleeve to make the connection here is just really difficult. So put the drafting elbow on first, then attach to the intake. I think we got some footage of that we can show you. Then we look at the through the wall. So the advantage is we don't have a hump going over the rail of the folding tank. So if you think about the water level, whatever the water level is, it's going to come up to about here, assuming the tank is full. We only have that little bit of space to get rid of the air. So a couple of advantages of doing it that way. No hump, less air, easier to draft. We saw Bud just dump the water into the tanks. You can see how tight the tankers have to get to the tanks. That's why it's absolutely critical to line them up correctly. All right, now I want to show the transfer devices in operation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have them charge the lines. We'll see the water moving from the secondary tank to the primary tank. We saw at the beginning the streams looked a little anemic. We want to see where there's a solid column of water coming out. We're going to run out of space to put the water here in a second, but you know, I can't tell you the magic number to pump it at. In my experience, it's usually around 125 psi. Might need to be a little bit more. You just need to look at the water column. All right, so I just want to point out a couple of things with the transfer devices. So the nozzle closest to me is acting like a ring in terms of how low it can go. You can see the advantage of using the jet siphon on the low head strainer is the amount of usable water is much better, right? So that could go a lot lower in the tank. This one still is moving a little bit of water. You can see the water being drawn in, but it's definitely not as effective as that one at the lower depths.
Cool. So,
Yeah, good stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit more about tank placement, something that occurred to me while we were sitting here watching that video. So you asked about setting up in diamonds, and I had thought about it then and kind of wandered mentally away from it. So we bought the single lane tanks because most of our rural fires happen in environments where the road is one lane in either direction.
Yeah,
There's not a
narrow.
whole lot of space. It's narrow. If you can set up your dump site in an area where you have the opportunity to have lots of room, where you can put the tanks, directly in front of the pump panel to where you can get to them easier. I'm not saying not to do that. Why wouldn't you do that?
right.
We're just trying to give you the tools to be able to operate in the normal conditions that you
Right.
find. But
Right.
so it's not that we're saying you got to do it in the back or you got to do it in the front or you got to do it in the side. You got plenty of options.
Right.
Right.
And just another reason to pre-plan your area, right?
Yep,
Just
absolutely.
To know where to go, know for what you may need to utilize some space for.
Right.
So, I think, do you have a question?
Yeah, there was another question came in. Somebody said, you mentioned testing clappered Siameses during hose testing. Are all appliances supposed to be tested during hose testing? So great question. So best practice would be that they should be tested on an annual basis. Certainly NFPA 1962 says that. Most hose testing is driven by ISO requirements. That is not an ISO requirement. But that's certainly something that if we're not doing, that we should probably start doing. So I guess I've got a little investigating to do, and we'll figure that out.
And we're going to be up at hose testing probably just a little bit longer. So,
Might be.
jeez. Okay. All right. Well, great videos. Again, thanks to 1075 Media for those awesome videos. They got the air shots, everything. And Station 13 for showing us how to set all those things up. Someone like myself, it was very informative. I think that's all we have for today. The next go-round for Wheeling the Rig, we have some new EMS units coming into play. Are they not? They're not in service yet. Are they in service?
So we got like 6 or 7 already in service.
Okay.
So Station 12 got the first 2, and then we've gradually been rolling them out as we get them in, and I think we've got 4 more
Okay.
left to roll out. Yep.
So, and obviously we're using them a bunch around here. So, we are going to have our next episode probably looking around the end of June or so. No dates yet. But looking at the new EMS units as far as cots and
There's some other functional details, yeah.
Couple extra things on there. Also, not that they've been out for a while, but if we have the availability, I think we're going to discuss some of the operations of the SAM towers. People that have not seen them yet, they are completely different as far as operating and setting up goes. So stay tuned for that. And again, if there's something that you'd like to see, please email Chief Bush or you can email me. Yeah, you can email me too if I can figure out how to open it and reply back to you. Sure. But yeah, let us know. For now, though, I think that's the kind of direction we're going. Is we're just trying to touch base. It seemed like we got a lot of good feedback from the engine wheeling the rig, the new E1s, and we just want to try and put stuff out to make sure it's informative to everyone out in the department. So
Yeah, that's right. We've gotten a couple of suggestions already. After that, I think we'll probably be talking about the rescue squads, and then certainly, I think migrating back to rural water supply. We've talked about kind of the dump site and the attack tanker and all that, but at the other end, how do you fill them? How do you do that efficiently? So
Sure.
that type of stuff. Yep.
Yep, good stuff. So again, shoot us email if you have an idea. That's what we have coming up on the next episode. And until then, thanks. See you. Be safe.
Be safe.